Hey there, this is the Resistor Vic podcast. I'm here to get folks thinking about politics as something that's really about regular people like you and me, and to realize that together we can make a difference. I'm Vic Myers. Welcome to the Resistance. Oh, this was supposed to be a different episode. 24 hours ago, I was sitting in this very chair thinking that I had an alternate episode in the can and ready to just simply edit. Didn't work out that way. I came home from work and I made me another attempt and everything went well. It sounded great in my ears. And then when I was putting it all together, distortion in the mic again. The temptation to say, oops, sorry guys, I just couldn't do one this week. It's not going to cut it. I'm too damn stubborn, I reckon. So anyway, this was supposed to be an episode with Dr. Kyle Ayrton, and we did get together and we did record an episode, and I think it was all right. But the problem was when I went to edit it, he was perfect sounding, and I was like I was in the bottom of a well somewhere. You couldn't hear me. And try as I might, I couldn't fix it. So I called Kyle, and I said, hey, buddy, sorry, but it's too messed up. We'll have to reschedule and try again. And he was very gracious. And he said, these things happen. So I am going to do another episode with Kyle, just not this one. In the meantime, I got something that I got to put out, right? So this episode is episode 5, Off the Cuff. I've got something on my mind that needs saying. I'm going to retrain my brain so that I'm using the name Trump. After he was elected, I avoided saying his name as much as I could. I felt like saying it gave him power. I couldn't believe that this piece of garbage, the guy who called for the attack on our Capitol, was our president again. So I started calling him Felon 47 and a few other things. And I think we all need to stop doing that. Except for the pissed off bartender, because I'm sorry, his stuff is just too good. He needs to keep going with his nicknames. It's fun. But I called him a lot of things, but I didn't call him Trump. But things have changed. Things are getting worse. The things that Trump and the Republican Party are doing are horrendous. And more obvious to the American people the longer it goes on. It's just more obvious how bad they are. So now I believe it's time, and it's important that we say his name, that we say Trump, that we say the Republican Party, because we need people to make that connection, to associate these terrible things with Trump and with the Republican Party. When you see a bunch of men drive up in an unmarked car wearing masks, no badges, snatching people off the street, that's when you need to speak up. That's when you need to tell people, this is Trump's America. This is the Republican Party's America. Don't just think it, say it. When you hear somebody complaining about the cost of groceries or about how their job's slowing down, they might get laid off, whatever, this is Trump's America. This is the Republican Party's America. Another thing to talk about when it comes to Trump, another example of you can say this is Trump's America. How about his strike on Iran? The talking heads have been arguing over it. Was it legal? Did he have the authority? Was it a good idea? Did he achieve anything? Let's get real. The mission was a bust. And I heard somewhere today, I haven't had time to look it up and see if it's true, but I heard on one of the podcasts that we are going to pay Iran millions or billions of dollars to repair the damage that we did. So, is that real? Somebody please look it up. Tell me if that's real. Because that just compounds how much of a colossal cluster mess this is. Anyway, we know that it didn't achieve anything. despite him going on his True Social and telling us it was an amazing success, we now know that they basically accomplished nothing. But it did stir up trouble, right? It didn't achieve a military goal, didn't achieve a diplomatic goal, but it stirred up trouble. Because Iran didn't just issue a statement. They promised to activate their sleeper cells. And now it's yesterday because it's Tuesday in the wee hours of the morning, but yesterday the Ayatollah issued a fatwa against American and Israeli leadership. It's only a matter of time before something really bad happens, that we get another terrorist attack. Because Trump didn't just drop a bomb on Iran. He handed them a reason to come after us. And here's the kicker. We're not ready. And why aren't we ready? Because Trump's administration has gutted the FBI. They slashed the budget. They put an incompetent at the top, Kash Patel. My dad would have called him Blue Eyes. One blue this way and one blue that way. I know, I'm sorry. I had to get that in there in honor of my dad. That was one of his favorite sayings. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, the incompetence at the top. They have purged the FBI of all of the ethical people who were there. Just the other day, they fired everybody that was involved with investigating January 6th. I mean, who's left? If they haven't been fired, they resigned out of disgust. The FBI, the Justice Department, the people that we need to go after terrorists, the ones that are the most important when it comes to sleeper cells and finding them and stopping them before they do something bad. Trump administration is not focused on keeping us safe. They're being repurposed, the FBI. The FBI is repurposed to help ICE. Instead of chasing down criminals or tracking terror threats, they're helping ICE go after immigrants, legal or not, violent or not. Actually, I don't know if you could say violent, because there's a guy that did that firebomb attack in Boulder last month. Definitely violent. He was a foreign national whose visa expired. They could have been going after him. But instead, they're going to the Home Depot or some restaurant or some hotel or some farmer's field. They're going after the hardworking people who aren't committing any crimes. They're going after the mother who just had a baby and she's still breastfeeding. She's married to a U.S. Marine. Nope, got to deport you. Instead of chasing down criminals, they're doing these kind of things. The FBI is focused on helping the Gestapo go after immigrants. So who's watching the sleeper cells? Who's tracking them? Who's watching the real threats? Who's focused on stopping terrorism inside our borders? Not the FBI, not ICE, nobody. So that attack I just mentioned in Boulder, yesterday it was reported that an 82-year-old woman who was caught in the firebombing has died. That is Trump's America. That is the Republican Party's America. This is what happens when your government stops focusing on national security and starts focusing on cruelty. When that is their main goal, national security is not even an afterthought. And between Trump and Congress, that's two of the three branches that are failing us miserably, because the Republican Party in Congress is just saying, yes, Daddy, whatever you want. And what about our Supreme Court, the third branch of government? 4 of the current justices were part of the Citizens United ruling, the ruling that opened up the floodgates for dark money. It weakened the safeguards that were supposed to protect our elections from corruption. And 3 of the current justices, they worked on the Bush v. Gore in 2000 as attorneys, and that was a decision that nullified votes and handed an election to a man who didn't win it fairly. That was an election many of us believe was stolen. And what do we have now? A Supreme Court that has weakened our presidential election process, a Supreme Court that weakened protections against dark money, And now they're taking up cases that can gut environmental protections, empower big businesses, and block states from defending themselves against things like dangerous pipelines. And just today, well, again, now yesterday, they announced that they're going to hear a case in the fall that could remove limits on how much political parties can contribute to federal elections. This is a case the Supreme Court already decided back in 2001. Why are they taking it up again? Let's be honest. They're likely going to remove those limits, right? I mean, that's got to be the only reason why they agreed to hear it again. So they're going to remove those limits. They're going to pave the way for unlimited billionaire donations to flood our elections even more than they already do. I guess maybe, guys like Zohran Mamdani winning against a establishment guy backed by the millionaires and billionaires, maybe that's got the Supreme Court spooked and they're thinking they haven't done enough. The oligarchy just doesn't have a tight enough grip on us. They've failed their responsibility to be loyal to the Constitution and not to a president and not to a political party. They've chosen loyalty to their ideology. They've chosen loyalty to their religion instead of to the Constitution they swore to uphold. Our founders gave the court lifetime appointments for one reason: so they could stay loyal to the Constitution without fear or favor. I think it's time that the protests we've been seeing, the hands off, the no kings, these really big protests that have happened, the first 50501 protest, it's time for these protests to start happening at the Supreme Court and at the federal courthouses. It's time. We've got to take some action to remind the Supreme Court that they are a third and co-equal branch of government. We've got to remind the Supreme Court that they work for us. They don't work for the president. They don't work for a political party. They don't work for a church. They can go to church on Sunday. Monday through Friday, they need to be defending and protecting and upholding the United States Constitution. So we need the kind of energy that we saw for the hands-off and the No King's Day protest. We need that kind of energy at the Supreme Court, at federal courthouses across the country. Now, I'm no protest organizer. Somebody called me up and said, "Hey, Vic, we need you to organize big protests across the country." It's going to be a pretty sparsely attended event because I'm just some guy out here on the prairie. That's not my thing. But if you're listening to this, if you know somebody in Indivisible, if you know somebody in the 50501 Discord group, let's get the word out there. Let's talk to those people and say, don't you think it's time we protest the court and remind them of who they are and what they're supposed to be? I think it is. I think it's maybe way past time. Because this court isn't just handing down rulings. They're shaping our future. And they're shaping it in the wrong direction. Saw a headline a few days ago. Friday, I think it was. Chief Justice Roberts was lamenting the harsh words being used against judges. And look, I get it. We don't want violence. We've seen right-wing fascist nutjobs physically attack judges. So on that point, Roberts is right. But maybe that headline and what he's saying, maybe he's not just worried about tone. Maybe Roberts is trying to salvage his legacy. Because when you look at Citizens United, Bush v. Gore, the immunity ruling, the cases they're lining up now, maybe he's worried about how history will judge him. Maybe he thinks if he can get people to stop talking bad about judges now, then history will be kinder. I don't know. I mean, it begs the question, Justice Roberts, do you think it's some politician in Washington that's got me pissed off at you? Do you think it's some guy on Fox News or CNN or MSNBC railing against judicial decisions? Do you think they're the ones that have me angry at the Supreme Court? And when I say have me angry, I'm talking about me generally, us, the man on the street. We the people, are mad at the justices. And it's not because of what some politician is telling us for a soundbite. It's because your decisions suck. It's because your decisions are harming the future of our children. It's because your decisions are devoid of any rationale that ties them tightly to the United States Constitution that I and so many other people have sworn an oath to protect and defend. So yeah, don't waste your time talking to the press and saying, please talk nice about us because you're really hurting our feelings and making us scared. If you want people to talk nice about you, give them a reason to. Wow, I've been wanting to get that off my chest for a while. I'm sorry that I wasn't able to bring you Dr. Kyle Ireton this week, and we will have him on a future episode. But here in another day or two, I'm going to record next week's episode. I'm going to sit down with Z. Cohen Sanchez of National Ground Game. And disclaimer, I am a part of the UNF America Tour. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about our next stop in Tampa. On July 12th, Charlie Kirk is having one of his fascist rallies and doing everything he can to indoctrinate a bunch of young Americans into the MAGA cult. I mean, just as an example, before Trump dropped the bomb on Iran, he was railing against what a horrible idea it was, how we had no business doing that. And then Trump dropped the bomb, and Charlie Kirk is praising him for what a fantastic military leader he is. And think about it. Do you want that guy talking to our young people and luring them into that cult? Because he obviously doesn't have their best interest even remotely in mind. He cares about one thing: selling his ridiculous t-shirts, getting clicks on his ridiculous videos, and keeping himself in some kind of power with the administration so that his billionaire backers will continue to funnel money into his pocket. That's what he's all about. If he thought he could make more money by supporting progressive Democrats, he'd be there in a heartbeat. But the big money, the billionaires, the majority of the oligarchs, I mean, to be fair, there's plenty of millionaires and 1 or 2 billionaires supporting the Democrats, but nothing like on the other side. So he's going over there where the money is. And we're going to talk to Z about that. We're going to talk about why it's important to be a voice on the left that's countermanding his indoctrination of young people in America. I don't want to get too deep into it, though, now do I? So, I hope after the what feels like millionth try, I finally have a good copy that I can post for a podcast episode. If it's bad, I'm sorry. I am so bloody tired right now. Anyway, next week, talking to Z. Talking about National Ground Game, talking about going on the UNF America Tour. And I guess that about wraps it up. So, thanks for listening. Good day. Well, folks, looks like we're back at the barn and it's time to call it a day. I sure do appreciate you spending your time with me. If you want to help keep this podcast going by supporting me, you can get a paid subscription on Substack, where I'm Resistor Vic. Or if you're the type that'd rather go to PayPal, I'm also resistorvic@gmail.com. Thanks again.